It happened again. You promised yourself it wouldn't. You woke up repeating that you'd be calm, that today you'd be more patient, that you'd speak softly, that you'd breathe before reacting. But it didn't take long, and there you were again. Voice raised, face flushed, chest tight, exploding, and then the guilt arrives, that familiar whisper that says, "You failed again." You tell yourself, "I love my child so much, so why do I lose control?" The answer isn't that you're weak or broken, it's that your brain was hijacked. The Stoics understood this 2,000 years ago, though they didn't know the term amygdala hijack. Epictetus wrote, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them." Neuroscience confirms it. When your child screams, defies, or collapses in a meltdown, the emotional brain, the amygdala, interprets it as threat. Before the rational brain can speak, your body has already released cortisol, adrenaline, and the ancient command, fight, flee, or freeze. You think you're parenting, but your nervous system believes you're surviving. That's why your voice rises before you decide to raise it. That's why your hands tighten even when you love the person in front of you, because love lives in one part of the brain and threat lives in another. The storm inside the mind. The Stoics called this storm pathos, a passion so strong that reason temporarily disappears. Seneca compared it to insanity. Anger, once let loose, is difficult to recall. It rushes on and nothing can stop it. Modern psychology gives it numbers. When the amygdala fires, it takes 0.3 seconds for the stress signal to flood the body. The prefrontal cortex, the part that reasons, empathizes, chooses, arrives a few seconds late. By then, the words have already escaped. The tone has already changed. The look in your child's eyes has already shifted from curiosity to fear. And you, suddenly conscious again, ask, "What did I just do?" The Stoics didn't have brain scans, but they studied the same battlefield, the space between impulse and judgment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the battlefield where every explosion begins, and where every redemption can start. The false idea of control. You think self-control means never feeling anger. That's not Stoicism. That's repression. True Stoicism isn't about eliminating emotion. It's about understanding the physics of emotion. Seneca explained it this way: "We are not disturbed by what happens, but by our opinion about what happens." Your child yells. That's the event. You interpret it as disrespect. That interpretation lights the fuse. If you could pause before that meaning attaches itself, you'd see the event for what it is. A child overwhelmed, not an enemy plotting your downfall. But you weren't taught to pause. You were taught to react, because the world measures parents by control, not by consciousness. The Stoic doesn't aim to suppress the storm. He learns to stand in the center of it without drowning. You are not the first to fail. Epictetus was a slave. He couldn't control his master, his circumstances, or even his own body. His leg was broken by cruelty, yet he found freedom inside himself. He wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." But mastery isn't perfection, it's repetition. Every time you explode and return to awareness, you are training the soul the way a soldier trains reflexes. You fall, you rise, you study the fall. That's philosophy. That's progress. The Stoics called this daily training ascesis, spiritual exercise, not theory, practice. So the question isn't, why did I fail? It's, what can this failure teach me about my triggers, my limits, my beliefs? Each explosion is data, a signal pointing to a wound you haven't yet healed. The hidden mathematics of emotion. Emotion works like pressure. Every irritation, every fear, every sleepless night adds to the internal load. The more you carry, the smaller your window of tolerance becomes. When that window narrows, even minor noise feels like threat. That's when the amygdala takes over. The Stoics intuited this without knowing the term nervous system. They observed that the soul, like the body, tires under excess strain. Seneca said, "The mind must be given rest. It will rise improved and sharper after a good pause. That pause is your reset, but you don't take it, because the modern parent lives without silence. Always rushing, always alert, always one task away from collapse. And so, when your child resists putting on shoes, your brain reacts not to the shoes, but to the 1,000 unmet needs stacked beneath them, recognizing the real enemy. It's not your child, it's your overload. It's the invisible accumulation of unprocessed stress that makes small things feel enormous. The Stoics warned of this. When the mind becomes cluttered, even small wins feel like hurricanes. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them." Judgment is the spark. You can't always choose the event, but you can learn to see your judgment as optional. That awareness is liberation. The moment after the explosion, after the outburst, silence descends. You see the fear in your child's eyes, and the ancient voice of shame whispers, "You've damaged everything." But philosophy begins right there, in the ashes of regret, because that moment, painful as it is also the most conscious you'll ever be. You're raw, open, humbled. You're finally teachable. The Stoics would tell you, don't waste that moment. Study it. Ask, what thought preceded my reaction? What meaning did I attach to the event? What belief about control was threatened? In those answers lies your map out of repetition, the Stoic model of the mind. The Stoics saw the human being as composed of two domains. One, the outer world, events, people, behavior, circumstance. Two, the inner world, perception, choice, judgment. You can't control the first, you can only govern the second. Every explosion happens when the boundary between them blurs, when you try to control what belongs to the outer world and abandon the inner. So the next time your child melts down, remember, you can't command their brain. You can command your own. That's not detachment, that's discipline. And that discipline practiced daily becomes peace, a new definition of calm. Calm is not the absence of storms. Calm is the mastery of the oar while the sea is wild. It's not stoic coldness, it's stoic clarity. To be calm is to remember, I cannot control what happens. I can control how I meet what happens. That's not weakness. That's strength in its highest form. Because anyone can appear serene when life is easy. Only a philosopher remains composed while holding a screaming child at 2 a.m. That's the real test of Stoicism, not in temples or books, but in kitchens, cars, and hospital waiting rooms. First practice, awareness before reaction. Here is your first exercise. Simple, ancient, powerful. The next time you feel the surge, do not fight it. Just name it. Anger is arising. Fear is present. I feel my chest tightening. Labeling the emotion activates the rational brain. It moves you from being the emotion to observing it. Epictetus would call this prosoche attention, a constant awareness of the state of the soul. You can't stop the wave, but by naming it, you start surfing instead of drowning. That's how Stoicism begins. Not by changing your child, but by studying your own reactions. What happens inside you before you explode? The hidden mechanics of the mind. Before you explode, something happens inside you, always in the same order, even if you don't notice it. It's not random. It's not, you just lost it. It's a sequence, mechanical, predictable, almost mathematical. The Stoics understood this long before psychology gave it names. They called it the sequence of impressions, phantasia catalepticae, the chain between perception and reaction. Something happens outside you, but the explosion begins inside. Let's look at it step by step. 1. The event, stimulus. Your child screams, refuses, or breaks something. The event itself is neutral. It has no moral weight. It's just movement, sound, chaos. But in the next instant, something happens. 2. Interpretation, the invisible judgment. Without realizing, your brain assigns meaning. He's doing this on purpose. She's defying me. He's making me look like a bad parent. I can't take this anymore. This invisible judgment transforms the event into a threat. You don't explode because of what your child did. You explode because of what you think it means. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's not a metaphor, it's neurology. Interpretation decides which part of your brain takes control. If the judgment is calm, he's overwhelmed, not disobedient. The prefrontal cortex stays in charge. If the judgment is hostile, he's challenging me. The amygdala seizes the throne. That's when the body floods with adrenaline, heart rate spikes, and you're no longer reasoning. You're defending. You don't parent, you react. 3. Emotion, the biological wave. Now comes the storm. Anger, fear, frustration. It's automatic. You can't stop it, but you can understand it. The Stoics never said, don't feel. They said, don't become the feeling. Seneca described it with surgical precision. Anger is brief madness. Control it before it controls you. Your pulse rises. Your body tenses. Your breathing shortens. That's the moment to intervene, not by suppressing it, but by not giving it meaning yet. You can't stop the wave from coming, but you can choose whether to ride it or let it drown you. 4. Action, the point of no return. When you believe the thought and identify with the feeling, that's the explosion. It's not weakness, it's sequence. That's why the Stoics insisted the key moment is before assent, before the mind says, yes, this thought is true. Epictetus taught his students to delay judgment. When you are provoked by someone's words, do not allow your impressions to carry you away. Say, wait, let me see who this is and what he says and why. That fraction of a second is the whole path to mastery, because between stimulus and reaction, there's a space. And in that space lives your freedom. The Stoic neuroscience. What the Stoics described as pathos, emotional disturbance, modern science calls the amygdala hijack. When you perceive threat, your brain's alarm system bypasses logic. It shuts down the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for empathy, planning, and moral reasoning, and sends your body into primitive survival. In ancient terms, your rational soul, the hegemonikon, is temporarily dethroned by passion. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn that which he thinks he already knows." When emotion hijacks you, you're blind to reason. You can't learn in that moment. You can only recover after it passes. That's why guilt after an explosion is useless. You're judging yourself with logic for something that happened without logic. The Stoic approach isn't punishment, it's pattern recognition. They trained to notice sooner, to catch the first spark before it ignited the forest. The delay, Stoicism's secret weapon. Seneca advised, count to 10 before you speak, count to 100 if you are angry. It sounds simple, even childish, but it's neurobiological genius. Because in those seconds, blood flow returns to the prefrontal cortex. You move from reaction to reflection. Modern cognitive therapy calls this response delay. Stoics called it prosoche, vigilant attention. The practice is the same. 1. Feel the surge. 2. Name it. 3. Breathe. 4. Wait. You're not suppressing emotion. You're reclaiming authorship of your action. That's what separates a philosopher from a slave to passion, the space between the thought and the truth. Viktor Frankl, who lived centuries after the Stoics but carried their spirit, wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." And that's the same space the Stoics described, the sacred pause, where the mind can intervene before the body takes over. The more you practice entering that space, the wider it becomes. And one day, in that pause, you will find peace waiting for you. How to practice the Stoic pause. Step 1. Awareness. Notice the first signal, your heartbeat, your clenched jaw, your shallow breath. Say to yourself, the wave is here. Step 2. Detachment. Don't say, I am angry. Say, anger is visiting. This subtle shift separates identity from emotion. Step 3. Breath. Breathe slowly. In for 4, out for 6. The body obeys rhythm. Calm breathing signals safety to the nervous system. Step 4. Reflection. Ask, what is this anger protecting? What fear is beneath it? You'll often find grief hiding under rage, fatigue under control, love under frustration. And when you find that root, the storm begins to dissolve. Emotion is information. The Stoics didn't demonize emotion. They studied it as data. Every emotion is a messenger. Anger says, a boundary was crossed. Fear says, something precious feels threatened. Sadness says, you're letting go of what mattered. When you explode, it's because those messengers have been ignored too long. They don't disappear, they multiply. You think you're overreacting to one moment, but you're reacting to every moment you've swallowed in silence. The explosion is your soul's way of saying, I can't carry this anymore. You are not broken, you are overloaded. There's nothing wrong with your emotions. What's wrong is the amount of unprocessed weight they carry. The Stoics compared the soul to a vessel. Fill it beyond capacity and it spills, not because the vessel is defective, but because it's full. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them. And it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now. In other words, the world doesn't overflow you. Your own accumulation does. Empty it daily, through reflection, through breathing, through stillness. That's not indulgence, that's maintenance. Even the Stoic needs to exhale. The parent as philosopher. Philosophy isn't a luxury of the calm. It's a necessity of the exhausted. The Stoic parent is not someone who never yells. It's someone who keeps returning to awareness after yelling. Each return is victory. Each moment of consciousness repairs what the explosion broke. The Stoics didn't call that perfection. They called it virtue. The steady orientation of the soul toward reason. You don't need to be flawless to be philosophical. You just need to keep coming back to yourself. Inherited fire, why you carry the anger of your parents and how to break the cycle. The fire inside you didn't start with you. You think it did, that your anger, your impatience, your guilt are yours alone, but they're echoes. Echoes of voices that raised you, of eyes that judged you, of homes where silence screamed louder than words. You didn't invent this explosion. You inherited it. Just as we inherit eye color or the shape of our hands, we also inherit emotional maps, rules about which feelings are allowed and which are dangerous. You didn't choose your nervous system. It was sculpted by the nervous systems that came before you. If you grew up with shouting, your body learned that love means tension. If you grew up with coldness, it learned that silence is safety. If you grew up walking on eggshells, your amygdala became an alarm wired to ring before danger even arrives. And now, without wanting to, you pass that alarm forward. The ghosts you carry. Carl Jung called it the shadow. The part of ourselves we hide because it wasn't safe to show it. Anger, fear, sadness, need. All the feelings your parents couldn't face, they taught you to bury. But buried feelings don't die, they wait. And when your child mirrors them, when your child cries the way you once did, or rebels the way you were never allowed to, the shadow awakens. You think you're reacting to your child, you're reacting to your past. It's not your child's scream that hurts, it's your own inner child screaming through them, the chain of reaction. Imagine a chain forged over generations. Each link is a pattern, yelling, shaming, withdrawing, controlling, apologizing too much. Your parents didn't start the chain either. They inherited it, maybe from people who survived war, hunger, abandonment, poverty, people who didn't have the luxury to reflect. They just reacted, but you do. You live in a time when awareness is possible, when pain can become wisdom instead of inheritance. The Stoics would say, what stands in the way becomes the way. Your emotional struggle is not a curse. It's the invitation to end the repetition, the Stoic Jungian mirror. Marcus Aurelius wrote, when you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger. Jung said almost the same. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. That's not coincidence. It's truth expressed in two languages. When your child triggers you, they're holding up a mirror. They're showing you the part of you that still suffers from being misunderstood, that part of you that learned to survive by controlling what couldn't be controlled. So when you yell, "Why can't you listen?" the deeper voice is really saying, "Why didn't anyone listen to me when I needed it most?" The moment you realize this, the explosion stops being moral failure and becomes revelation, how the brain keeps the past alive. Neuroscience neuroscience shows that emotional memories live not in words, but in sensations. When your child does something that reminds your body of an old danger, a tone, a gesture, a sound, the nervous system doesn't distinguish past from present. It reacts as if it's happening again. That's why logic doesn't help. You can tell yourself, he's just a child, but your body still believes, I'm being disrespected, unseen, trapped. The Stoics didn't use words like trauma or triggers, but they observed this exact phenomenon. They said the mind projects onto the present the ghosts of its own judgments. Seneca warned, he who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than necessary. You're suffering the echo of old storms, not the weather of today. The Stoic approach to breaking the chain. You can't fix what you don't face. That's why the Stoics practiced exam conscientiae, daily self-examination. They studied their reactions like scientists studying nature. They didn't ask, who's to blame? They asked, what's mine to master? Try this exercise. After every explosion, write down 3 things. 1. The event, what happened. 2. The judgment, what did I tell myself it meant. 3. The origin, who taught me to think this way. When you trace a reaction back to its origin, it loses power. It's no longer instinct, it becomes insight. And insight, repeated often, becomes transformation. Understanding your parents without excusing them. Marcus Aurelius, in Meditations Book Why, began by listing everyone who shaped him. He thanked them, not because they were perfect, but because they taught him something even through their flaws. He wrote, from my grandfather Verus I learned good morals and the government of my temper. From my mother, piety and generosity, and to abstain not only from evil deeds, but from evil thoughts. That's Stoic forgiveness, understanding without erasing the wound. You can do the same. You don't have to justify what they did. You just have to see the pattern clearly enough to choose differently. When you see your parents as humans shaped by their own storms, you stop being their prisoner and you start being your own philosopher. What you resist persists. Jung said, what you resist persists. What you accept transforms. The Stoics said the same through amor fati, love of fate. Love not what is ideal, but what is real. To love your child, you must also love the parts of yourself that still need healing. Otherwise, you'll keep fighting both. The moment you accept that your reactions make sense, that they come from pain, not evil, compassion replaces shame, and compassion dissolves repetition. You stop punishing yourself for your triggers. You start listening to them. Because every trigger is an invitation to meet the younger you, the one still waiting to be understood. The Stoic ritual of releasing the inherited voice. Here's a simple practice. 1 part Stoic journaling, 1 part Jungian integration. 1. Write down the sentences you heard in your childhood when you were upset. Oh, stop crying or I'll give you a reason to cry. Oh, you're too sensitive. Oh, don't talk back. Oh, you're just like your father. 2. Read them aloud. 3. Say calmly, that was their voice. It doesn't have to be mine. Each time you do this, the chain weakens. The inherited voice loses authority. You're not erasing your past. You're updating it, breaking the lineage of unconscious reaction. The Stoics believed in sympatheia, the interconnection of all beings. Every act of awareness affects more than one life. When you break the cycle, you don't just change your child, you heal generations. Because the pain that entered your family line through silence leaves it through consciousness. You think you're just learning to control your temper, but you're actually redeeming your ancestry. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. You are recoloring your family's history, one conscious choice at a time. You are the turning point. Every lineage has a turning point. One person who decides it ends with me. That person is not the calmest, not the most spiritual, not the most educated. It's the one who dares to look inward without running away. That's you. Your willingness to confront your own fire, to hold it without passing it on. That's heroism in its quietest, truest form. You are the philosopher your family never had, and your child, through you, will inherit something entirely new: peace. The Stoic tools for emotional alchemy, transforming explosions into wisdom. The Stoics never promised a life without storms. They promised the art of steering the ship during the storm. They believed emotion could be transformed, not eliminated, not denied, but transmuted into understanding. That's what Seneca meant by virtue, the alignment between reason and feeling. Today we call that emotional regulation. The Stoics called it living according to nature, and nature, they said, doesn't suppress, it flows. The river that resists its course overflows. The one that flows freely cleanses itself. You're not here to suppress anger. You're here to understand what it's asking of you. Below are the ancient tools, still powerful today, that can turn your emotional chaos into consciousness. 1. The Stoic Journal, writing as a mirror for the soul. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations for anyone else. He wrote to himself. It was therapy before therapy existed. Each morning or night he turned chaos into clarity through words. You can do the same. Not to sound wise, but to see yourself clearly. When you feel the storm, write down: what happened? What did I tell myself it meant? What emotion followed? What did I do? What could I have done differently? That's not self-criticism. It's philosophical accounting. The Stoics called it exam conscientiae, the daily audit of the soul. Seneca described it beautifully. When the light has been removed, and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and measure my deeds and words. By writing, you create distance between you and your reactions. You move from being the storm to observing it. Writing doesn't erase your mistakes, it transforms them into maps. 2. The view from above, seeing the storm from the sky. When Marcus Aurelius felt crushed by worry, he practiced the view from above. He imagined himself rising over his palace, over Rome, over the earth, until he could see himself as a tiny point in the vast universe. He wrote, "Consider how small a part you play in the whole." From that altitude, every meltdown, every moment of guilt becomes just one wave in an infinite sea. Try it. When you feel anger boiling, close your eyes. Visualize yourself floating above the scene. See the room, the neighborhood, the planet, all from above. You as a parent, trying, learning, breathing. Then whisper, "This moment will pass. My love will remain." That's not detachment. That's perspective, and perspective is power. 3. Negative visualization, immunity through imagination. Seneca practiced premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. He imagined everything that could go wrong before the day began: insult, loss, delay, betrayal. Not to live in fear, but to weaken fear's grip. He who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than necessary. When you mentally rehearse difficulty, it stops shocking you when it happens. Your nervous system has already met it once, so when your child refuses, yells, or breaks down, you don't crumble. You think, I've been here before, in my mind. I can handle this. This isn't pessimism. It's preparation. It's not expect the worst. It's be ready for the real. It's because peace doesn't come from calm surroundings. It comes from prepared minds. 4. The trichotomy of control. What you can, can't, and partially can influence. Everyone quotes the Stoic dichotomy, what's in your control and what's not. But the Stoics were more precise. Epictetus hinted at a third category: influence without control. 1. What you fully control, your thoughts, actions, choices. 2. What you don't control, other people's actions, the past, the future. 3. What you can influence but not control, your child's behavior, your relationships, outcomes. Most suffering hides in category 3. You think you're failing because your child isn't calm, but calmness can only be influenced, not commanded. When you stop demanding total control, you rediscover serenity. Epictetus said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." You are not responsible for your child's reaction. You are responsible for the space in which it happens. That's not detachment. That's love without illusion. 5. The evening reflection, turning guilt into growth. At night, the Stoics would revisit their day, not to punish, but to learn. Seneca described it. "When the light has been removed, and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and measure my deeds and words." You can do the same. Ask yourself, Asin, where did I lose my calm today? What thought preceded it? What belief was threatened? What truth can replace that belief tomorrow? End with gratitude, even for your mistakes. Say quietly, I am still learning. That is my progress. Gratitude shifts the nervous system from defense to openness. It reminds the brain that life is not just threat, it's also grace. Marcus Aurelius ended many entries in meditations this way: the world is change, life is opinion. Translation: everything is temporary, except the meaning you give it. 6. The art of delay, the Stoic shield. When you feel the first wave, the heat rising, the words forming, don't rush to speak. Seneca's rule still stands. Delay is the best remedy for anger. Delay doesn't mean suppression. It means giving your reason time to catch up. Count to 10 or to 100. Breathe deeply. Look away. Touch something grounding, the table, the wall, your own wrist. Each second of delay is a second of freedom regained. You're not ignoring the emotion, you're mastering it. Every warrior knows the battle is not won by speed, but by awareness. 7. The Stoic pause before sleep. At the end of the day, before you collapse into exhaustion, give yourself 30 seconds. Close your eyes and repeat, today I failed in some ways. I succeeded in others, but I remained on the path. That's what the Stoics called eupatheia, the healthy emotion that follows right judgment. Peace is not the absence of passion. It's passion in harmony with reason. That's what you're building, one reflection at a time. The alchemy in motion. You can't avoid the explosion forever, but you can turn every explosion into instruction. Each failure, written and examined, becomes wisdom. Each pause, practiced again and again, becomes strength. Each reflection, done honestly, becomes virtue. That's emotional alchemy, turning pain into purpose, reaction into realization, survival into serenity. The Stoics didn't seek to be saints. They sought to be learners, and that's all your child needs from you. Not perfection, but presence. Not control, but consciousness. A new definition of mastery. You are not mastering yourself when you never feel anger. You are mastering yourself when you can feel it, name it, hold it, and still choose love. The ancient philosophers called this prohairesis, the inner freedom to decide who you will be even when the body trembles. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "No role is so well suited to philosophy as the one you happen to be in right now. And the role you're in, parent, caregiver, guide, is the most stoic role of all, because every day you face what the philosophers only wrote about: chaos, fatigue, frustration, love, and you're still here, still trying, still learning to respond with virtue. That's philosophy in its highest form, the Stoic parent's redemption, transforming guilt into growth. When the storm ends, silence falls. You stand there, chest tight, the echo of your own voice still vibrating in the air. Your child is quiet now, maybe crying, maybe frozen, maybe avoiding your eyes. And then comes the guilt, that heavy, familiar voice. I did it again. I swore I wouldn't. I've ruined everything. But guilt, if it doesn't lead to growth, becomes a new prison. The Stoics understood this. They didn't believe in self-condemnation, they believed in correction. Seneca warned, repentance is useless if it becomes a habit. He didn't mean we shouldn't feel remorse. He meant we shouldn't live inside it, because guilt that doesn't become reflection becomes indulgence. You suffer, but you don't change. And your child doesn't need a guilty parent, they need a present one, the Stoic meaning of repentance. In Latin, the word penitentia, repentance, meant to reconsider, not to punish yourself, to rethink. That's what the Stoics practiced every night. They didn't cry over the past, they studied it. Seneca wrote, "When the day has fled, I examine my entire conduct and repeat my deeds. I conceal nothing, pass over nothing." That's Stoic repentance. Not tears, but truth. Not I'm terrible, but here is what happened. Here is what I can learn. But the difference between guilt and growth is simple. Guilt says, I'm bad. Growth says, I acted outside my values and I can realign. That's how philosophy turns pain into progress. The sacred act of repair. After every explosion, there's a moment. Fragile, quiet, holy. The moment after. Most parents waste it. They run from it, ashamed, or they overcompensate, apologizing excessively, bribing, begging. But what your child needs is not your guilt, it's your repair. Walk toward them. Breathe. Kneel and say, "I'm sorry I yelled, I was overwhelmed. My job is to handle my feelings, not to pour them on you. I'm still learning." That's not weakness, that's leadership. You're modeling what emotional recovery looks like. You're teaching that mistakes don't destroy love, they deepen understanding. That's stoicism at home. Not the absence of error, but the constant return to integrity, from guilt to gratitude. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Translated to parenthood, stop defining the perfect parent. Be the present one. When you explode and then reflect, you're already becoming the philosopher you once needed as a child. Gratitude is the bridge between guilt and growth. Be grateful for awareness. It means consciousness is alive in you. Be grateful for fatigue. It means you're showing up. Be grateful for imperfection. It means you're human, not a machine. The Stoics saw gratitude not as emotion, but as perception. To see even failure as part of nature's plan, that's amor fati. Love not the fantasy of control, but the reality of constant becoming. The hidden gift of the child who triggers you. Every time your child pushes you to your limits, they're showing you the edges of your evolution. They're not against you, they're revealing you. Without them, you might never have met your own impatience. You might never have learned the depth of your love. You might never have faced the wounded child still living inside you. Your child is not your test. They are your teacher. They don't need perfection from you. They need a guide who keeps walking even after falling. That's what Stoic virtue looks like. Courage, patience, humility, not control, but awareness. The Stoic redefinition of strength. The world defines strength as control, as keeping your composure no matter what, as never breaking. The Stoics define it differently. Strength is returning to reason after madness, returning to calm after chaos, returning to compassion after guilt. Marcus Aurelius failed constantly. He wrote about it, he doubted himself, he grieved deeply, but every dawn he returned to the page, to philosophy, to the practice. That's what made him strong. Not perfection, persistence. You're doing the same. Each time you come back to reflection, you rebuild your inner empire, the final meditation. Tonight, when the house is quiet and the storm has passed, do this. Sit alone, breathe slowly. Picture your child asleep, chest rising, face soft, peace restored. Then whisper, "I am learning, I am changing, I am forgiven, and tomorrow I will try again." Because Stoicism was never about suppressing emotion. It was about transforming emotion into wisdom. You are not expected to be perfect. You are expected to keep practicing. Every time you reflect instead of repeat, you win. Every time you pause instead of punish, you evolve. Every time you choose presence instead of guilt, you become free. Your child as your mirror. If you forget everything else, remember this. Your child is not your reflection. They are your mirror. They don't show you who you are. They show you what still needs healing. And in that reflection lies your greatest opportunity for growth. When you meet their chaos with awareness, you break the oldest spell in the world, the repetition of unconscious pain. You turn generational fire into generational light. The closing words. You will still explode sometimes. You will still cry in the dark. You will still doubt, but you will also recover faster. You will repair more gently. You will love more wisely, because philosophy doesn't erase storms. It teaches you how to stand in them with grace. And you, my friend, are already doing that. You are not broken. You are becoming. And that, to the Stoics, is the only perfection that exists. The system that works. Stoic engineering for modern parenthood. And most importantly, now you have the complete blueprint. The same system that kept a Roman emperor functional for 20 years under impossible conditions. Not because he was special, but because he had a method. Morning visualization to reduce reactivity. Prososha to create 3 seconds of choice. Crisis protocol for when you're at the edge. Recognition of complexes to stop confusing past with present. Radical acceptance instead of destructive suppression. Evening examination to learn from every every failure. It's not magic, it's engineering, applied neuroplasticity, ancient philosophy validated by modern science. And you don't need to master it all tomorrow. Marcus Aurelius took decades. You have time. Start with one practice. The evening examination. Just that. 5 minutes before sleep, writing what happened and why. The practice curve. Week 1. You'll fail 9 times, succeed once. But you'll learn something technical from every failure. Month 1. Failing 7 times, succeeding 3. Progress. Month 3. 50-50. Half the crises you stay in control. Half you don't. But half is a revolution compared to the 10% from before. Year 1. You still explode. But 30% of the time, not 90%. And when you do, you come back to yourself in minutes, not days. And your child, they grow up with a parent who fails but recovers, who makes mistakes but learns, who isn't perfect but is present. And that is all they really need. Not a Zen father untouched by emotion. A human father with a system that keeps him functional when everything collapses. The Stoic lineage of practice. Seneca exploded during exile. He learned. He wrote on anger. He improved dramatically. Agrippa rehearsed provocations every day. So when a real insult came, he was ready. Marcus Aurelius failed and scolded himself in meditations, but he kept practicing. And he governed an empire for 2 decades without collapsing. You don't have to rule an empire. You just have to not yell at an 8-year-old because they asked what for the 100th time. And this system can get you there. Not today, not perfectly, but progressively. And progress, even slow, even imperfect, is the only thing that matters. Your turn, the call to action. If this video gave you real tools, share in the comments. Which component of the system will you implement first? And what was your biggest insight about why you explode? Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because every video here is ancient philosophy applied brutally to the real chaos of raising neurodivergent children. Share this with other parents who also explode and hate themselves afterward. They need to know they are not monsters. They're humans without a system. Choose one practice, just one. And most importantly, today, now, choose one practice, not 7. 1. Tomorrow morning, 5 minutes visualizing the provocations most likely to come. Or tomorrow night, 5 minutes analyzing what happened. Or next crisis, the 4-7-8 protocol, 3 cycles before responding. One practice. Repeated until it becomes a neural path, then add another. Marcus Aurelius built a philosophical empire brick by brick. You can build emotional stability the same way, not because it's easy, but because it's possible, and possible is enough. When it happens again, the amygdala will fire again, the complexes will reactivate, the crises will come again. But now, you have a system, and system beats personality every day of the week. You don't need to be naturally calm. You just need to be intentionally prepared. The rest, it's practice, repetition, failures analyzed, adjustments made, incremental progress. Marcus Aurelius shows you it works for decades. Neuroscience shows you it's real. And your child, they'll show you in 10 or 20 years that it was all worth it. Not because you were perfect, but because you had a system that kept you present, even when it was impossible. And imperfect presence is the greatest gift a parent can give. Final words. Now go, choose one practice and begin. Tomorrow you will fail and you will learn and you will try again. And that is real stoicism.